Hey Chip, how you doing? Hey Paul, Alex. Hope you're all well. The workshop is doing really well. I actually recorded a video earlier on doing a detailed tour of my little workshop. Hey Patrick. So I'm going to upload that later. I actually intended uploading it before, but I didn't manage. And at the end of the video I said, I'll see you all in about half an hour, but it's for London Calling, but it's actually going to be after London Calling, so there we go. I couldn't find my leather tray that I usually use, so I took out my tray, this beautiful tray from James Stumbo. He made this for me a while back. A really beautiful piece. And if you are listening, James, thank you very much once again. So you've got LCS Briars in the leather. Look at the really nice shell pattern detail all the way around. Hey Todd. And underneath it, it's got my logo, LCS Briars, with a pipe, and London made Simon. Very nice piece. Hey Andrew. So I'm smoking Orlik Golden Sliced. I started this bowl a little bit earlier on. Hey Jeremy, tuning in from a small cabin in the woods. Good for you. I haven't smoked OGS now for a while, so it's good to get back into it. This is actually the 50-gram version, so it comes with a small flakes in, as opposed to the long belts that you get in the 100-gram tins. And I think the workshop now is actually in the best sort of way that it's been so far. I've been here for over a year now. Yeah, it must be more than a year. It might even be coming up to 2 years, I'm not sure. Because it was the anniversary of the Queen's passing on Friday, I think it was. And I had intended doing a small sort of run of Crown series, but I wanted to present the big Crown pipe that I had started back for the coronation, but the whole thing has dragged out ridiculously, and it's still not ready. And what I thought I was going to do was just a short run, maybe 3 or 5 pipes. I didn't want to sort of overdo it, kind of thing. But now that that date has passed, unless by some miracle it becomes ready in the next day or two. But it's a shame. I would have liked to have presented that. Yeah, it's definitely a year, Patrick, that's for sure. Question is if it's more than that. let me just go through my videos and we'll soon see. So I'll search my channel. Shop update. That's 9 months ago. Now that's a year ago, and that's outside still. So it must be less than a year. I can't believe that. Workshop update. Really taking shape 9 months ago. You might be right, Patrick. It might only be 9 months. Nine months ago. 10 months ago. So this one is 10 months ago, and it was already in the new workshop. I'm just looking at the videos. That's a small metal lathe which I tried for a few days. Sent it straight back. I wasn't happy with it at all. Ah, that was when my extractor arrived. That was 1 year ago. Right, so it must have been less than a year because I used it outside initially. Yeah, okay. Fair enough. I take it back. Patrick, you were right. Anyway, I've done a new video to give you pretty much the final position of where the workshop is, and it's looking really good. I'm very happy with it. So in one of my videos recently, I talked about this watch. This is my dad's watch, and he said I could, he gave it to me. So I mentioned in a video, actually I'm not sure if I uploaded it. I think I did. I think it was in the airport drive, where I took it to the shop for a new battery, and they said that it's not the battery's fully charged, and the watch needs a service. Watch this age, it's going to just need a service. Anyway, they wanted 70 quid to service it. I said I'll think about it, and I said just put the battery back and close it up, which they did, and it promptly started working. So the thing is, I wore it in the very hot weather, and it got condensation on the inside of the crystal. So I was speaking to Dale Piper, and he suggested that I put a gasket in there, and he sent me a link to some gaskets. Now the thing is that I don't believe this watch is designed to have a gasket, and what I wanted to know was whether or not there was some kind of gel or silicone or something that's designed specifically for when you close up a watch, just to give it some hermetical sealing. So if anybody knows about that, I'd I'd appreciate some advice on that. I'm going to see if I can open it. Well, that wasn't too hard. So that's the inside of the watch, and it says on it Seiko 5 jewels, Japan. I didn't even know that quartz watches have jewels in them. It's a really slim watch. I actually went into a jeweler's and I asked them whether or not I could change the movement for an automatic movement, and they said, you know, anything can be done, but to do it, because it's such a slim watch, would probably cost too much money, more than it would be worth. Amazing how compact it is. I would imagine now they're even more compact nowadays. What does this say? May 21. So it had a battery in May 21. You know what? There is a seal on it. Yeah, maybe it will take a gasket. So the watch guy didn't even know what he was talking about. He told me that it doesn't take a seal. I don't know if you can see this closely enough, but there is a very small gasket on there. To be honest, it actually doesn't look to be in bad shape. Perhaps it just needs a good clean so that it closes properly. There is a little bit of an accumulation of dust and grease. Which when cleaned off might mean that we get a better seal. What I've learned is that you have to be careful with this canned oxygen, canned air, because I actually used this on my motor for my shaping wheel, and it was full of dust, and so I blew it all out with this. Then when I turned it on, the whole thing flamed, and my daughter was in here with me, and she got the shock of her life. Big huge flame came jumping out of the motor. And I realised that because when this comes out at high pressure, it comes out sometimes as moisture, as condensate, essentially. And so I was a bit nervous that I'd actually shorted it out, but it was fine. I left it for a while, and it was fine, thankfully. But you do have to be careful with this stuff. Just going to make sure that I'm going over the crown properly. Yeah, so it clicks into place very easily, and it is fully home. I'll just see if I'll just correct the time and see if it moves. 1:47. Alright, so 1:47. Let's see if it moves. Alright, so I think I gave you guys a tour last week, but if you want, I'm happy to give you another tour of the shop. Maybe do it a little bit slower, more detailed, so you can see what's what. If that's of interest, just say so and I'll do it. Hey Texas, how you doing? I'm not in the watch business, no. I have an interest in the watch business, but I'm not in it. I guess there's a limit to how many pies you can have your finger in. The Brazil nut pipe that sold over the weekend. So right now, there's only one pipe left available, and that's this one. The small stubby sold as well in the last few days. With this LC, carb blasted LC, magnum size. It's the only available pipe. Unstained. Very clean piece of wire. I have wall mounted it. I'll show it to you in a minute if you like. Hey Daniel. It's been like that for a while. But we've got this beautiful black and green or jade swan neck stem. And it's actually really quite light for its size. Proper magnum. E-Star 785 LC. My phone is tethered at the moment because it's charging. So the battery's a little bit low, so I don't really want to take it out, but I'll do the best that I can whilst it's tethered. I think I'll try and get the wide angle going. There we go. So that is my left wall. So you can see that's the pipe rack there, which is mounted. It's been there for a while now. This is some preformed stems, tenons, bands, rings, and little bits and bobs there. Hey Tree, how you doing? And in here, just have a few of my own bits and pieces. Those are classic car magazines. Cigar Aficionado, which I don't get anymore. And that's Pipe and Tobacco magazine over there. That's the North American pipe collectors magazine, which comes out I think 6 times a year, maybe something like that. That's a box of pipes. That's a box of electrical cables and whatnot, and old iPhones. That's a spanner set. Up there, those 4 containers are my cellar. Are you all done with your treatment, Tree? I'm glad to hear that. I haven't been on recently, so I'll try and come on tomorrow night onto the Zoom. Sorry, I haven't really been available for it. And up there you've got just storage bits and bobs. So there we have the smaller lathe, the older lathe, which is 99% of the time on buffing duties. I've just tidied it up a little bit. I've brought the strips for the drill bits onto this wall. They were over here previously, but they were in the way. And there was a shelf here before, which I've taken away, so that freed up that I might put some small shelves up there. And then we have the large lathe. And what I've done on Friday is I've actually moved it down and forward because it was a little bit too close to the units above. And so now it just gives me a little bit more room to work with, and also gives me a little bit of space here to keep some bits and bobs there. I've got a nice shelf running the full length of the room over there, which got tobacco on it, and it still will organize itself over time. I've got a strip light above the working area, which is great, nice and bright. The only thing which I haven't really fully sort of got to grips with is a mount for the phone to give a good angle for my live streams when I'm making a pipe. That little black thing there is what I've got at the moment, but I've still got to figure out the right way that I want to do it. Also, I think what I might do over there as well is put some something up there for my tools. At the moment they're fine under the lathe, but it's not the ideal. And we have the shaping wheel. I rejigged all of that on Friday. So I made this little stand for it last week, but I've readjusted it in terms of the height. You can see I've put a couple of little bits of ply in between to raise the height a little bit, and I've put this little plate on the front so that I can put this scoop. I've changed the scoop. I had a much bigger scoop, but it was coming out into the room much too much, and it was disturbing my buffing. It's not going to catch as much dust as the large one, but it'll be good enough. And I've also shortened the hose here, so it's really short, so the power that it's going to get is really direct, and it will, really grab the dust as much as possible. Under here, I don't know if you can see it, but you've got these hoses. There's 3 of those. This thing has 3 motors on it. It's the most powerful model that they do, so it's really powerful. But there's 3 exhausts for the air that's produced by the motors, and that gives off extremely hot air. And till now, when I've been working in here with the extractor on, I would be dripping in sweat by the time I was finished doing whatever I was doing, and anything in the vicinity of the extractor, which was actually on that end of the room, but would be boiling hot. So Record Power do these hoses which fit onto the exhausts. They're 2.5 meters long, and what I've done is I've run them all under here, and I've joined them and put them all into one pipe, which I've then reduced down and comes out of that there, and that goes out the window. And there's two things that those hoses do. The hoses, number 1, take away the hot air, but number 2, they reduce the noise. So you guys who have been watching me doing live pipe making, when you watch me doing the sanding, the noise should be reduced by at least half, and it actually does work. I've made, I think the last pipe that I made, 787, I think that one was shaped in this using the, not sure, possibly was used whilst having those hoses in place, so definitely makes a difference. I can vouch for that. And obviously these drawers, which I have shown already before, which just help to organize things, which I'm very happy with. And I've got my printer in there, a large disc sander, which I use for squaring off blocks, and of course the bandsaw. And because the computer is not in that cupboard anymore, because my screen used to be there, that's where I used to sit, so I've taken the computer out of that cupboard, so that's freed me up some storage space. So I've put back the original shelves that should have been in there, and a lot of stuff has gone in there, which is good. And the computer now sits next to me over here, so I've got good access to the wires and whatnot. I always find that a trouble when you tuck away your computer into a corner somewhere, when you need to change something, you got to pull everything out to deal with it. So having it exposed like this is it just makes it handy. Just going to make sure to keep vacuuming them out vacuuming out the dust and every so often. I did that on Friday, cleaned it all up. Yeah, my headphones, my heat gun, sandpaper. Yeah, that's pretty much my shop at the moment. And there's obviously my briar and some of my tobacco. Oh, that's great news, Tree. Really, really good news. Speaking of Brian Doran, check out his channel, because he's had some guy taking pictures from stuff that he's posted and pretending that he's selling it, and he's basically scamming people. 3 monthly checks for 5 years. Okay? Let's hope that you stay free and it's all done and dusted. I'm very happy for you, Tree. Good for you. Hey Nathan. Hey Ahmed. Yeah, I mean the whole point of this exercise this time round was, in actual fact, was this workbench actually came out to about here before, and the lathe was on where I'm sitting now. So there was no room. There was literally a very small sort of narrow area in between the two sides that I could actually walk through. My chair, if I wanted to slide, sort of roll down from my desk position to the shaping wheel, which was here, I'd be bashing the sides. So it was very claustrophobic, and it was just not ideal for, a good working space. But now it's just great. There's so much room. I feel like a human being, so I'm very, very happy with that. I mean, storage space is at a premium. There's no question about that. And if I ever decided that I wanted another machine, I'd struggle a little bit. So, I'd have to start thinking about what machines I absolutely have to have out. I don't have a lot of machines out. And besides, for the printer, I need every one of those machines. There's one machine which I still don't have out, which is my grinder, which I use for sharpening my chisels. That's under my desk, and I just put it on my desk whenever I need to use it, and just sharpen them and then put them back underneath. I can live with that, no biggie. If I was to take the printer out, then yeah, I'd have a bit more room. I could probably get another machine or just put the grinder on there, but I'm okay. It's more convenient to have the printer here, so that's going to stay for now. I've got a commission I've got to get done, so I might make a start on that tomorrow. That is a repeat of pipe 782. That's quite a lot of work involved in that pipe. So I've got to find a suitable block as well. So that should be interesting. And I've got to really get cracking on... Oh, nice, Nathan. That's nice. That's nice. You sharpen knives, and you'll be making custom knives after the shop build. Cool. Well, let me know when you're up and running, and I'll be more than happy to give you a shout out on my channel if you'd like that. So we've got the Nottingham Pipe Show, which is in the not too distant future. It is why isn't it in my diary? Humidity and temperature affect cigars. Does the same go for pipe tobacco? Can do. I mean, if you leave it open and it gets very humid, you could get some mold on there. If it's in a sealed jar, it's better. It's on the 8th. I better put it in 8th of October, is that? Okay. Well, I should know because I'm supposed to be having a table there. So it's going to be the first time that I'm actually going to take a table at a pipe show. The Nottingham Pipe Show is the only pipe show that we have here in the UK, and I haven't travelled overseas to any pipe shows. And I think there'll be a few other new English or British pipe makers who will be showing as well. So it should be quite full this year. But I haven't made any pipes yet. It's been really hard to do that. Number one, obviously, I've been doing the shop, getting it shop shape. But you know, for quite a lot of the time, I'm doing commissions, and I don't really get a chance to build up a stock as such of pipes that I can take with me. And the ones that I do make go on the website and they sell. I can't afford to have pipes sitting around, so it's my income, so I need them to sell. So what I'm going to have to try and do now for the next month is to step up my game essentially and try to make more than one pipe in a day. And what I will do is put one pipe away and have one pipe available for sale, and I try to mix up, you know, the sort of level, the star levels, maybe 4 stars and 3 stars, so that I've got a bit of everything, you know. So okay, so the LC, if that doesn't sell, then that one can go with. But I'll probably end up making, you know, things like this, which are a little bit simpler. Then this one is sold now. Sat on that one for a while. When you compare it to this one, for instance, which just sold the other day, today actually, this is the Brazil nut. There's a lot of work. A lot of work goes into a pipe like this. So to make something like that, it takes a couple of days, you know. So to be able to make something like that to take with and not be paid for it once you've made it until you've taken it with to the show, you know, it's quite a... It's quite an undertaking. But I'm going to have to try, because just to take sort of more basic ones, you know, when you go to a show, you want to be, you know, show what you're capable of, you know. And there's bound to be some people there who don't follow YouTube and won't have seen my wares. So it's really important to have a range to show people. This one here, that's shipping out in the next day or two. Yeah, the silver's already got a patina on there, it's tarnished up. Beautiful material, this. So there's a few pipes that I need to ship out now. I've actually got 3 pipes that I need to ship out. So those will be going in the next day or two. I'm a little bit behind on that actually. Actually, I think it's 4 pipes that need to go out. going back to your question, Texas, about humidity with pipe tobacco. I mean, I've opened tins of pipe tobacco and it's covered in mold. So you have to be unlucky for that to happen, because essentially what had to have happened was that the bacteria was already in the tobacco before it was sealed up. But generally speaking, if your tobacco is in good condition, you put it in a jar, and it's in an airtight jar, like a mason jar, you should be fine. It's only when you open it up and you get moisture and you get heat, temperature, then you're going to grow any bacteria that's in there. So if you open the jar, if you've got an open tin of tobacco, which you haven't jarred up, but it's unsealed, it's opened already, and then you just put the lid back on, that you're risking possibly getting some mold, because bacteria can float around in the air, mold bacteria. I think it's unlikely, but it can happen. And you can end up getting mold on your tobacco, but thankfully it's quite a rare thing. I mean, there was a time when, I think it was Cornell and Deal, a lot of their tobaccos were coming up moldy, and the seals had popped and stuff like that. I think they've dealt with that. It's going back a few years. What stem colour do I like the best? Daniel was asking, and what material? I'm not really that fussed about colour. It's always nice to have a bit of colour. I mean, that purple one is just stunning. Was that in a bag? That pound of HH Dark Fired? Really? Well, somehow that had some mold had to get in there at some point when you opened it, because it wouldn't come out of nothing. Much like the universe. But mold generally travels through the air. It's airborne. Can be. The little tiny, what do they call them? Each one of those things. But it's at an atomic level. So at some point when you open the jar, somehow some mold has gone in there. Spores, thank you, Chip. So going back to the stem material, for me it's much more about the button and how it's shaped than anything else. Then it's more important to me than material, and it's more important to me than colour. I had actually a customer, an existing customer, who wanted one of my pipes, but abhors acrylic stems. I was just literally talking to him on either Thursday or Friday. I think it was Thursday. And he said, just give me a second, guys. My son's trying to grab a taxi and I've got to send him some money. Hey Sam. Yeah, that's exactly right, Daniel. They are more. They're a harder material. This is acrylic. It is a harder material, and for some people it could be uncomfortable on the teeth. Ebonite, vulcanite, Eldritch, all of those are going to be softer on your teeth, no question about it. But for me, it's much more about the comfort, the bend, if it's a bent pipe, the bend, the thinness of the bite zone, and the shape of the button. And that for me is much more important, much more crucially important than the material or the color. But if it was down to choosing the material or the color, then material is not so much important for me anymore. If we take for granted that the button is how I like it, then the material is not so important anymore, because I find that if the button is like that, then I find it equally comfortable. It doesn't bother me. So it's more about color. Again, I'm not really fussed with color. I don't like really black anymore. It's just the color. I mean, it's not going to change the way the pipe smokes, but I do like any color. It could even be the boring old classic Cumberland, the black red, but I don't really go for black anymore. It won't stop me buying a pipe with a black stem, but if I make myself a pipe, it's very rare that it would have a black stem. Dual bore was actually something used by Radice. They started, I don't know if they were the first, but certainly they were the ones that I've seen doing dual bore. Essentially what you'd have two holes there. Instead of a slot, you'd have two holes, and they would run sort of at an angle and meet somewhere in the middle. So it won't be two holes all the way down to the pipe. It would just mean that you're splitting up the smoke, so half going into one channel, half in the other. And the idea of that was to reduce tongue bite. I believe that was the idea, and whether it did it or not, I don't know. But you don't really see them very much anymore, so possibly there wasn't much of a demand for it. But what I have noticed is that what I think is pretty awesome is back in the 60s and 70s, maybe earlier in the 50s, there was so much variation and experimentation done by people wanting to bring out the latest fad, the latest clever little idea in pipe making to make their product more attractive to people. No, I've never made one. I don't see why I couldn't, but it should be easy enough to do. The only thing is that you couldn't do it on the lathe, that's all. You'd have to... I do have one of these little mini lathes which I bought for the original purpose of cutting the slot, but I now do the slot by hand, and it's much more reliable than that mini lathe. So, but I guess you could do it on such a lathe, because that has a rotating head where you can just rotate it, drill, rotate back and drill. So you could drill it at an angle, I guess. Yeah, I mean, in theory, that would be interesting to see if it could eliminate tongue bite and not have to do with filters. But I think it would have taken off much more if it would have worked. And there's always going to be somebody who's on the cusp of tongue bite who, something like that, a little sort of, I'm not going to say they're a gimmick, but that kind of thing, where it might help them. Everybody's got a different level of sensitivity to tongue bite, so it depends. When I first started exploring dealing with my tongue bite, way before I started using filters, I used lots of different things. I used Nording stones, I used filter pads, I used the mesh, I used whatever I could find to try and solve the problem, slowing down my cadence, adjusting the briar, adjusting the pipe, whatever I could do to try and eliminate the tongue bite, and nothing that I did helped. So for me, I just deduced that I had a super sensitive tongue to tongue bite. I mean, yes, I could smoke a pipe in a way where I would take one drag every minute, then yeah, I wouldn't get tongue bite. But for me, that's not smoking a pipe. So here's standpipe. So for me, filters was a game changer, and I'm unlikely to ever go back to smoking without a filter. I smoked for about 2 years without a filter. The first year, I couldn't get anywhere near anything Virginia based. The only tobaccos that I could smoke were some aromatics, funnily enough, because aromatics are more bitey usually. Hey Maui, how you doing? But mostly Latakia blends. And that was a struggle in itself, because I had to get over the pungency of Latakia, which for me, just having started smoking a pipe for the first time, it was a complete, it was so counterintuitive to smoke something which tasted of a campfire. And so there was that initial repulsion, which I've said many times. But once I got over that and really fell in love with Latakia, I smoked that predominantly because it was a much cooler smoke than Virginia's. So I was able to smoke that. But even then, I couldn't usually have 2 bowls back to back. You know, I'd have a bowl in the morning on the way to work, and then maybe later on in the evening. But I got to the point where I may have, maybe have 1 bowl of Northwoods, which is what I smoked most of the time. It was either Northwoods or Special Latakia Flake most of the time. I mean, interspersed with other stuff, Blue Mountain, or Balkan Blue, I should say, a bit of the SPC stuff. But for the most part, it was Northwoods. But then in the evening, I'd probably smoke a cigar, because for some reason cigars never give me I would say they never give me tongue bite. And Mike Briar Blues did ask the question on one of his videos: is that how come when you smoke a cigar you don't get tongue bite, but you smoke a pipe you do? So there must be something in it. And he has a point. I don't know. And he said it's got to be something to do with the tobacco, the cadence, or whatever. But there is something being introduced in there, which for some reason, whether it's to do with the pipe, I don't know, but something which gives you tongue bite. And whilst it may be possible that you could do things to avoid it, for me, when I discovered 9mm filters solved the problem, there was no need for me to break my back finding a solution to the problem when I had one in front of me. And it never really bothered me, people who say that smoking a filtered pipe is not really smoking a pipe, you're just ducking out, you're chickening out of smoking a pipe like a man. To me, that's just baloney. It's elitism. People should just do whatever suits them. And to be honest with you, there's thousands of people who smoke with a filter in Germany. In Europe, there's a lot of filtered pipe smoking going on. So I'm certainly not going to worry about somebody's opinion. That I was wondering where this went to. I don't know how it was sitting on top of my bandsaw and ended up behind my screen. I don't know. Absolutely, Andrew. Yeah, the majority of Europe. I don't know if the majority of Europe, but certainly Germany. They certainly smoke. They're the biggest filter smoking population in the world. It's a really big market, filter market, Germany. If you slow your roll, I assume you mean if you slow down how many times you draw. The cadence. You're very lucky, Maui, if you've never had bite. I've always, from day one, struggled with tongue bite. Yeah, Nathan, that pretty much was the case for me too. There was a time when I almost quit smoking a pipe, and I smoked just cigars. That was in between 2017 and 2018. I basically got fed up with it, and I really delved into cigar smoking. And for about a year, I smoked cigars, maybe a handful of pipe bowls throughout the whole of a year. Hey, Mark. I don't know, Maui. I mean, it's just the biggest market for filtered pipes. Whether, it could be that the pipe smoking community there is so large that you wouldn't necessarily come across somebody smoking with a filter. But the filtered pipe smoking populace in Germany could still be less than those that smoke without a filter. But it is the biggest filter market. So I don't know. I mean, it could be that the amount of people that smoke a pipe is, say, 1 million in Germany, and only 100,000 smoke filtered pipes, but that's still a massive market compared to the rest of the world. Yeah, I mean, I'm the same, Nathan. I tried everything. I really did. Well, there's plenty of bangs with filters. I was very close to buying one from Smoking Pipes about a couple of years ago. It was £600, which was a pretty good price for a bang in those days. Now they've gone up because they've stopped making pipes. But I was very close to buying it then, but in the end I backed off. Yeah, I know plenty of people who smoke 9mm pipes, just don't bother using a filter. Hey Adam, experience with different types of filters. Well, I did use various different types in the beginning, but I settled on the Vaughan Dr. Pearl filters, and I've smoked those since. Those are the only ones that I buy, so I can't really comment about all the other brands. I don't recall having any serious problems with any of the other ones. I had Peterson ones. Can't remember which ones I've had, but I don't recall having any major issues. But the Dr. Vaughan ones, they come in 180 boxes, 180 filters. You can buy a large box, so it's just convenient to get those. I've got some 6mm ones. I converted one of my pipes, which had a very thin, very narrow shank. So I converted that to 6mm, so that's why I have a few Savinelli 6mm, but generally speaking I don't use 6mm. Design Berlin. They make nice pipes. I am later than usual. I started an hour and a bit later than usual. I have to go out. But as a general rule, as I say, most of the brands of filters are all pretty good. The only difference with the Dr. Pearls is that they've recently changed that both ends have the ceramic caps. They used to have one side plastic and the other side ceramic, and the plastic end would go towards your mouth. But now they've done both ceramic, so there's no... People used to get confused by it. Not sure why, but people did. So they've changed them now, and they're great. They do very well. The draw on them is really good. Yeah, I mean, I haven't had the Petersons for a long time, Andrew. And the Blitz ones I had going back a while. I think it was actually after the Zrati sale. His wife gave me a bag. She said she gave it to me free, and she gave me a bag. It had 200 Blitz filters in there, and they were great. I didn't have any problems with them. You know, smoked through the bag. I guess you were one of those, Andrew. Got confused. I saw your comment, Daniel. Thank you very much. I just didn't want to encourage you to send me stuff, that's all. I know we've all got our struggles in life, and it's expensive to send stuff, and I just didn't want to encourage you. If you want to send it, you could send it, but it's totally not necessary. Savinelli. So the 6mm ones that I have in here, those are Savinelli, and I find the draw to be really, really tight in those. So I'm not sure if it's better in any other brands. I don't think I've tried the Vaughan 6mm. Maybe I should. Because if they were better, I would probably smoke my my first ever pipe that I bought. This is a Butts Chacquin, which I rusticated. 9mm. At that stage I didn't even know what 9mm was, and I didn't put a filter in it either. This was my first ever pipe. I'm not even sure I could say that I broke it in. It smells like it had aromatics in there, but it had a great big chunk of something there, which when I started rusticating, the whole chunk just came off, and there was definitely a fill there. But I've kept the pipe just because it was my first ever pipe, but that's the only reason why I've kept it. Yeah, that's a sweet little thing. I suppose I should really smoke it, shouldn't I? Can you get a block with platter on top and bottom? Yeah, if you cut the burl from top to bottom, a slice, then you would have a piece with top to bottom. But you can get some which are just, around like 180 degrees because it's the round top of the burl. So you can get something like that, which is all the way around, and you can get, so this one isn't all the way down there, but you can get completely. But if to get the top and the bottom, you'd have to essentially cut a slice of the whole burl. I'm trying to find my Saran Wrap book. There's a lot of beautiful pipes getting very dusty here. The pipes that I don't smoke on a regular basis. Is it feasible to use the chucks with pin to turn the block like a poker, but use it to make a foot for a classic cutty? If you wanted to turn the foot, all right, Patrick, have a good night. Right, so say you've got a block and you want to cut on the lathe. So say you've got that's a bit like a cutty shape. So you want to cut a little foot on there, something like that. So I guess, you could mount it on the lathe like that and cut that, but the thing is that when I'm making a pipe, it's just me personally, I want to make sure that everything else is tickety-boo. And sometimes when you're cutting it on the shaping wheel, when you're shaping it, you end up with a flaw or something like that. I guess you could do that and then sand through it if you need to. But I don't see why, in principle, you couldn't put that on the lathe, line it up on that line there, on that axis, like that, turn that little bit there, and then take it out. It doesn't have to be central to that axis, to where the chamber is. You want it to look balanced, so you want to get it as near as possible to the center of the bowl on the heel, and roughly in line with the center. But with a cutty, often you're going to have it's often forward canted, so you just need to work out where you want that to be. But I don't see why you shouldn't be able. So when you cut the block on the bandsaw, you just want to leave that bit still on so you can turn it. But you have to be very careful with your measurements, because if you make that, you go too far, then you've got nowhere left to drill, and you've messed up on your draft hole because you haven't got enough briar around there. So you might actually, you just have to be careful basically to make sure that you've got that you got your measurements right and you've got plenty of briar left, because when you turn it, you're taking away briar on either side, And if the base of your bowl is just to the side of that, you might hit the base there. So you just have to be careful about that. Just get your measurements right, essentially, and plan out thoroughly in the way you're going to design the pipe, and measure it thoroughly beforehand to make sure that you leave yourself room for the draft hole. That's all I would say. But I'm no expert in this because I've never done a cutty with a foot. I've done plenty cutties, but not with a foot. I haven't done any pipes with a foot. It's just not. It's a design thing. It's just not something which appeals to me in particular. And I generally make the pipes the way I like them as a rule. So it's just not something which has appealed to me in particular. I like the cutty shape, but like I say, I'm not the foot. I don't know if the foot makes it a cutty, or if it's still a cutty without the foot. I'm not sure what that was for. I assume it was to stand the pipe on a pipe stand, maybe, which had a hole that you could sit in, maybe. I know Savinelli, with one of their anniversaries, they made a cutty with a foot, and it came with a stand which the little foot sat in. So that I can totally understand. But it's like anything; it's just a matter of what your taste, your personal taste. I'll give you another example: the Devil Ants. The Devil Ants, I really like the way it looks from a design point of view, but from a practicality point of view, for me, it's a stupid design. It's very impractical. You have the forward canting bowl, which is pointing out like that, so you can't see what you're lighting. You're going to burn the rim and all that kind of stuff. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's just counterintuitive when it comes to practicality of smoking a pipe. Yeah, Devil Ants is also canted. It does. I agree. I like the look of it. I like the idea of it. One of the guys who makes the best Devil Ants is Paul Menard. He makes fantastic Devil Ants. I actually owned two of his. Well, I owned one, and I actually bought one from him. And I kind of owned one, but gave it away. He ran a competition once on Instagram, and he selected my name out of a hat. I won the giveaway. But because he knew that I'd already had the Devil Ants from him, he asked me to nominate somebody else who was in the giveaway, and I nominated Mike, Gamecock Piper. So I owned it, but didn't own it. I mean, he didn't give me the choice of keeping it, which strictly speaking he should have, but yeah, it was cool. I was cool with it. I always think if somebody's giving away a pipe, it's it's a pipe they were giving away for free. It's up to them really to do what they. I mean, if I didn't have one and he just changed his mind and he said, "I'm not sending it to you," then that I would be upset about. That wouldn't be that would not be cricket, as they say. But seeing as I just recently bought one from him, he just assumed that I wouldn't want another one, and I was fine with that. I don't think I've ever made a reverse calabash, no. Again, it's not something in particular which appeals to me. I've tried a reverse calabash in the days before I was making pipes, and I didn't find it actually enhanced the smoke in any way. That was another thing I tried to avoid tongue bite, because people said they smoke cooler. And I'm not even sure it's the heat that causes the tongue bite. It's the moisture more than anything, probably. I'm not entirely sure, I'll be honest with you. I just know that I suffered from it. So this is a Partagas D4, which I started yesterday. This is one of the D4s that my son bought for me from Switzerland came back on Thursday. He bought me 5 singles, and actually smoking really well. I don't know how old they are. He bought them from a tobacconist. But smoking pretty well. One of my other sons bought me a 10 box of these from duty free. I haven't smoked those because they're from 2022 and they still smell very fresh, so I'm not smoking those yet. Right, gentlemen, unless you've got anything else that you want to ask, I think that's me done. It's an hour and a half, but we started a lot later, so it's 2:45 in the morning, so I think it's a good time to call it a day. Oh yeah, I mean, forget it. You just can't buy them retail anymore, and that's in dollars, not in the UK. In the UK, it's even more than that. Buying retail cigars, Cubans, is just ridiculous. These cost me about £20, and that's considered cheap. Here in the UK, to buy a D4 retail, it's about 35 quid for a single cigar. Back in the day, you could almost buy a Behike for that, which now you'll spend hundreds for a single cigar. But a single 52, or was it 50, the original one? I think it was 52 ring gauge, basically a Robusta size, was 40 quid when I first started smoking cigars. The Robusta Supremos, I've said this before as well, you're talking £300-400 to buy a single cigar. Good night, everybody. Good night, Tree. Wishing you well. Hopefully see you Sunday, all being well. So I'll say good night to everybody. Good night, Tree. Good night, Andrew. Good night, Justin. Good night, Chip. Good night, Daniel. Do you think tongue bite only happens smoking messages or stopping? Aromatics certainly are more of a problem, but it's not just aromatics. Good night, Sam. Good night, Nathan. Good night, Texas. I think he's gone already. Good night, Stamper. And good night, Adam. Maui. Mark Welsh Piper. And everybody else. Thanks very much for joining. My pleasure, Nathan. Good night, JC. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one. I do have a video which I now need to upload, which I recorded earlier, which was a more detailed shop tour. So I'll do that either later tonight or tomorrow. But for now, I wish you well. Catch you on the next one.